We're going to call a meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Deanne, do we have a good news report?
We do, thank you. As you know, community engagement is one of the 5 priority areas that we hold as important tenets of the Sioux Falls School District experience and all that we do. We know that when we intentionally build strong relationships with our families, businesses, community partners, that our students are the ones who benefit from real world experiences and hands-on learning and that type of thing. A few weeks ago during our planning session, of course, you saw some of the key initiatives we'll be working on as we engage our community in the coming year. Things like inviting our lawmakers into our schools to see the excellence in our classrooms and also connecting with our community to look at future facility needs that are coming as a need in the district. And additionally, Dr. Nold is strengthening the process by which he collects feedback from our 2 most important stakeholder groups, of course, our students and our staff. So he's going to fill us in a little bit about his vision for that. First telling us a little bit about how he's going to gather student feedback and then staff feedback as well. So I will turn the mic over to Dr. Nold.
One of the things that we will be working on this fall is obviously, as was stated there, but entertaining the feedback from our staff, first our teaching staff, as we go through and as it pertains specifically to budget and budgetary type of constraints or concerns that could come into question. We want to make sure that we hear from them, the teachers in the classroom, what is it that they value the most and honor the most, that we want to make sure that we keep that and make sure if that's class size, that it's something we look at. It's something we've protected for a lot of years. Is that what they see as the most important thing in their classroom? Is it the EAs that support or help? Is it the things that they have as far as the specials coming in? But what is it that truly impacts the classroom the most and makes it easiest for them to be successful in the classroom? And so we'll have groups from the elementary first, and we use the cafe model to go through and have them discussion groups and then give us feedback on that so that we have it well before we start the budgetary process. A lot of that will happen in October and November. And so we'll have elementary groups, about 50 teachers, middle school groups, 25 to 30, somewhere in there, and then the high school groups, 30 to 35, a little bit proportionally to the size of the students that they represent, and make sure that we gain their feedback. On the student side of that, much of the same. We're going to go to each one of the high schools and meet with their student councils. And we have sets of questions that we'll go through, Dr. Zeke and Mr. Conrad and myself, and ask them those questions, get their feedback, things as far as how is it going with the cell phone, CTE. How do we end up getting more students to go out and utilize some of the services and the great programs that we have out at the CTE Academy? What is it they'd love to see out there that may benefit them the most? But to gain that feedback from the students directly so we can see how that impacts programming. Some of the other things that they may come into contact as well, as far as some of their senior years especially, are there things that they could do that are some type of service projects or projects that they could incorporate into that senior year as well to make it more meaningful, because some of which are trying out new things. CTE could become part of that, but especially if they're going to do something their senior year and they don't need as many credits, but to utilize that time wisely to help them to see what could be part of their future. So that's a couple of things that we're looking forward to. Obviously, we had commented a little about the legislative representatives coming into our schools to make sure that we see and hear their voices and that they can make sure that they see what we do in the classrooms and hear the students that way. But truly going to be intentional on bringing in our staff to talk with them, our teachers specifically this fall, and then our students to be able to go out and meet with them as well. We'll see how that goes with the high schools. We'll do it once each quarter, and then we'll try that possibly with the middle schools in the future.
So that is sort of a revamp of the Student Advisory Council, who used to meet down here. One or two select students from each school was chosen to come in and participate in that. And so hopefully by going out into the building and also making it a little bit more accessible for students to participate, who are very busy, of course, and have to be a lot of different places at a lot of different times, that we can continue to really get those voices in and hear them loudly and clearly so they can be part of the decision-making process. And of course, when we all work together in this way, whether that be the schools, the city, the state, we're stronger together. So we believe that when voices are heard and valued, when connections are made, when understanding is, we really take time for that understanding, then we can create some meaningful opportunities for our students, and that's what we're all here for. So we look forward to Dr. Nold's leadership in this direction. Just kind of wanted to give you a snapshot of what's to come, and we look forward to having those conversations with our key stakeholders, our students and our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanne. Okay, can I get approval for the meeting minutes held on 8/25/25 and 9/3/25?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those are approved. Do we have persons wishing to address the school board on non-agenda items? It looks like we have two. We will start with John Cunningham. If you could please come forward and state your name and your address.
Madam President, members of the board, I'm John Cunningham. I live,
5 minutes.
I'm sorry?
Just so that you have 5 minutes to speak.
Okay. I live at 4904 South Oxbow in Sioux Falls. And I have a master's degree in public finance, and so that's going to be the purpose of my discussion. Although I have a number of observations, but I'm only going to talk about one of those today. And one other item, the fact that you have the public high on your agenda makes you unique in this area, and I want to laud you for that. I think that that concern is laudable. You don't have unlimited resources, fiscal resources, and you cannot spend as much money as you would like on all the projects that you would like. That's just the way it is. And I'm going to say that I believe, without any fear of being wrong, that the general public would expect or request that academic funding academic projects be fully funded before non-academic. I believe you probably have the widest range of academic and non-academic programs in the state. I just believe that. I don't know if that's true, but I believe that's probably true. And but you can't fund all of them the way you want. And as a result, it appears to me that you are robbing Peter in some cases to pay Paul. And I'm going to pick just one bowling. For example, all the high schools have a bowling team, and that's a cost, not a major cost, maybe a couple of $200,000 or $300,000. But it means that money has to come from somewhere, and you are robbing Peter to pay Paul. In this case, Peter are the teachers. You're not funding teachers fully in order to be able to fund bowling teams, and that's just a surrogate for all of the non-academic programs. And I believe that that's a problem for reasons that you all know. My nephew was a teacher, Rookie of the Year teacher at Roosevelt High School about 12 years ago. And after 3 or 4 years, just as he was getting really good, he took a $10,000 raise to go to Spirit Lake, Iowa. And you're losing experience, you're losing continuity, And that, in order to fund bowling teams and other non-academic programs, you're losing that kind of experience and skill that as soon as you develop it, you lose it. I don't know how much of that you do, but I assume you have a fairly high turnover rate here, just because the states around you pay so much better. And so that's something I think you should think of as you do your budget preparation for the following year, that when you're funding a program, the benefits are there. You know what the benefits are, because a bowling team isn't a bad thing. But the cost isn't just the dollars, the $200,000 or $300,000. The cost is where it came from. What are you losing? What is the cost, opportunity cost, as an economist would call it, that is allowing you to do that? So if you have anybody would like any other observations that I might have, and I do have some, my phone number is on that sheet. Thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me, and I hope it helps you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Okay, Chad Bishop. You have 5 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Chad Bishop, and I live at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. I continue to respectfully request that George Orwell's 1984 and Animal Farm be required reading for all juniors and seniors in the district. I also renew my call to enhance the new social studies curriculum with lesson plans on the study of propaganda techniques and their use in our history. One of the most important of these techniques is censorship. Preventing a population, even in part, from seeing certain information allows narratives to be crafted, majorities formed, division instilled. Governments and media outlets can then amplify one narrative while squashing another, shaping public perception by not what is said, but what is hidden. For example, an extreme example, the Great Firewall of China, now enhanced with artificial intelligence, shows us how far this can go, an entire people's window to the world carefully filtered to serve the Communist Party's goals. This is not theory, it is history, even our history. The Church Committee hearings in the 1970s revealed Project Mockingbird, where intelligence agencies influenced journalists and stories in major news outlets. That would never happen today. That's sarcasm for the transcript. I would request that a lesson plan exploring those hearings be added to our social studies curriculum. Students need to see that propaganda techniques are not just relics from far-off regimes, but have also been used within our own country. A very relevant local example. Who remembers when the CEO of Sanford was fired, Mr. Kelby Kravenhoft? So when that story went national, it was framed as jerk CEO in the Midwest hates his nurses, won't wear a mask. But if you actually went and read that email that he sent to his 50,000 staff, I would have interpreted it as, I have a huge research staff. It's one of the best in the region, one of the best in the world. I ask them questions every week and they inform me. And what they inform me of is that because I have just recently recovered from COVID, I am immune for at least 7 months, if not years, because we had just begun to understand that we were seeing SARS-CoV 2003 antibodies in 2020. So his statement, near as I can tell, was true, and he was removed 4 days after it went public for reasons that were not stated. The research that he mentioned there happened to be a study going on at the time called the SURVIVE study, Seroprevalence under Repeated Viral Immunity Examination. It had begun in June of 2020 officially and had been announced in July of 2023. It was then quietly stopped 6 months early. It was never published until February of 2022. It wasn't even sent to the journal for submission until November 11th, 10 days after their own vaccine mandate went into place. Were their staff and the people of South Dakota given informed consent? In February of 2022, they knew in January of 2021 that 55% of the population, 55% of the people participating in that study, which were frontline workers at that institution, were antibody positive with a huge asymptomatic spread. How many were antibody positive in November? Who could have gotten that gentleman fired and removed from that position at that time? Why doesn't the public know about this? Why has no one ever heard of the Survive study? Why? Why, when we conducted protests out in front of the headquarters with 650 people and 2 by 8 foot banners that said, release the Sanford Survive study data in July and August and September of 2021, why was none of that shown to any of you in the Argus, on any of the news channels? Why haven't you seen any of it? Censorship. Sadly, the new standards adopted in 2023 do not touch on any of these subjects. Sioux Falls could lead by crafting lesson plans around them. I would also like to address the school nutrition program and how some of the data is reported. The Meal Viewer platform used by the district has supported both added sugars and UPC GTIN labels since 2023 and 2024 releases. Yet our district has not taken advantage of those features, at least in the data available as of today. I would like to make a practical offer. I have spent over 11 calendar years and 17 commitment years volunteering with the district, partnering with teachers and administration at All City Elementary. I'm willing to assist with the data entry required to get those fields populated and current. If there is a need to manually input product UPCs or the added sugar values from manufacturers, I'm ready to volunteer my time to do it. I type real fast. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chad. Okay, can I please get an approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Excellent.
You guys gotta get it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The agenda is approved. Don't see any conflicts of interest. May I please get an approval of consent agenda items A through E?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Can I please get an approval of the, well, no, hang on, let's back up. We will now have the finance report.
The superintendent
Tyler?
reports?
We just approved.
Yep. Superintendent reports.
Oh, hang on, do I have the same? Hold on, I want to see if I have.
Number 10.
Yes, thank you. We've got E carried. Okay, reports of the superintendent, thank you. I think on there we have the budget. All right,
Yep.
thank you.
Correct, absolutely. So we do have 3 reports will be presented tonight. The first one that will be leading off is Ms. McDaniel, and she will present the information on the UFly Reading Pilot Program report that we have. And I will not steal any of her information, but some of the results that we're seeing coming through that are incredible. And as you know, one of the greatest things we can do for a child is the ability to read. And so as we go through and look at the results that she has and the work that they're doing with our kindergarten, first, now second grades, just some outstanding results of that. And she'll go through that with us this evening. Ms. McDaniel.
All right, good evening. I'm Linda McDaniel, the Elementary Curriculum Coordinator for the Sioux Falls School District, and I'm here, as Dr. Nold stated, to share some exciting news and updates of the University of Florida Literacy Institute Foundations Program, more commonly known out in our buildings as UFly. We believe excellent instruction is the key to fostering high academic achievement in the Sioux Falls School District. It is our commitment to provide a comprehensive educational experience that promotes growth and success for all. UFly delivers on this commitment as a research-based program that provides a systematic approach to teaching foundational literacy skills to every student in our primary classrooms every day. UFly Foundations is an explicit and systematic program that teaches students the foundational skills necessary to be proficient readers and writers. It follows a carefully developed scope and sequence designed to ensure that students acquire each skill needed to learn, to apply each skill with automaticity and confidence. The program is designed to be used for core instruction in our primary classrooms. Every student every day remains the driving purpose behind the implementation of UFly as a Tier 1 approach to reading instruction in our kindergarten and first grade classrooms. As we deepen our understanding of the science of reading, we have carefully examined the curriculum used with our earliest readers. UFly provides teachers with a clear and explicit framework for teaching the foundational literacy skills, ensuring that every student receives that high-quality reading instruction every day. Its integration has streamlined our guaranteed and viable curriculum, maximized our instructional minutes, and positively impacted student achievement. Implementation has followed a strategic tiered approach. Beginning with a pilot cohort of students in the 23-24 school year, the pilot will expand annually to include all K-2 classrooms. By the time UFly is fully implemented across these grades, the district will begin its comprehensive ELA study, ensuring alignment and coherence in literacy instruction. Even in its earliest stages, UFly is showing promising results. During our pilot year, the district used an external assessment tool called Acadians to triangulate results. Data from Acadians was analyzed alongside UFly and our district map reading fluency outcomes to validate findings. The assessments were administered at 5 pilot schools and 2 control schools. The Acadians data provided strong evidence of UFly's impact, with our pilot school students outperforming the control group. In the pilot schools, 36.5% of our students scored above benchmark and 32.5% scored at benchmark, for a combined total of 69%, meeting or exceeding grade level expectations. By comparison, in the control schools, 15.6% of our students scored above benchmark and 24.4% at benchmark, for a combined total of 40%. These results demonstrate the significant advantage gained by students in our UFly classrooms. In addition, pilot students outperformed their peers across the district's other kindergarten classrooms, as evidenced in the spring map reading fluency assessment data. The stronger performance not only highlights the effectiveness of UFly, but also reinforces the value of providing all students with consistent, evidence-based instruction in our foundational reading skills. By the end, that looks a little funky, sorry about that. By the end of 24-25 school year, 81% of our kindergarten students performed at or above grade level in phonemic awareness and phonics word recognition, as measured by the NWA map reading fluency assessment. The most significant gains were seen in our students advancing from grade level proficiency to above grade level proficiency. These outcomes highlight not only the effectiveness of the program, but also the expertise and commitment of our educators. Teachers have engaged in ongoing professional learning through monthly collaboration sessions led by our instructional coaches. Coaches have reinforced implementation through co-teaching, co-planning, and coaching cycles, building strong partnerships that are critical to the program's success. Our teachers are sharing powerful feedback about the impact UFly is having in their classrooms. They consistently highlight how the program builds strong foundational skills, engages our students with meaningful practice, and provides clear structures that support both teaching and learning. Teachers are seeing students grow in confidence as readers and writers. The quotes on the screen capture the enthusiasm being experienced by our teachers and students. This, along with the data, affirms that UFly is making a real difference. Unlike many comprehensive commercial curricula, UFly requires a substantially lower financial investment, both in initial purchase and in its ongoing materials. The program provides a research-based resource with minimal recurring expenses, relying primarily on teacher manuals, online instructional slides, decodable text, and reproducible materials. A key strength of UFly lies in its emphasis on professional learning as its primary investment. Rather than directing funds towards costly consumables, resources are focused on building teacher knowledge and instructional capacity. Our instructional coaches have played a crucial role in this process, designing and facilitating the professional learning sessions while partnering with teachers in the classroom to provide direct instructional support. This approach strengthens long-term sustainability, by ensuring that teacher expertise continues to grow and transfer year after year. When evaluating return on investment, the combination of UFly and targeted professional learning is yielding measurable results, accelerating the development of foundational reading skills for our students. At this time, I'd just like to take a moment. They couldn't be with us this evening, but Abby Dawson, Sarah Hutchinson, two of our elementary coaches, have had a significant role in the implementation of UFly. They support our 24 elementary buildings by being present in classrooms daily, working alongside of teachers, attending collaboration, as well as presenting professional learning a minimum of 6 different times a month after school. Their commitment to this program, along with our teachers and our students, is having an impact. Every student, every day, UFly is making a positive impact in the lives of our Sioux Falls School District students. At this time, I would ask the board to acknowledge the update on the implementation of UFly, and I'll stand by for questions.
Could you say the name of those instructional coaches again?
Sarah Hutchinson and Abby Doss, they are elementary literacy coaches.
Thank you.
I just, we're going to first just get the
Oh, sorry,
motion
go
on the
ahead.
table and then open up for questions. How's that sound?
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion to acknowledge the UFly reading pilot report?
So moved.
Questions, discussion?
Thanks. I just want to jump the gun there. I just wanted to, I don't know, I just wanted to take a moment, I guess, to really, really acknowledge how important this is, because it's not just about kids learning to read, right? We know that literacy at these elementary ages is so highly correlated to every positive outcome, and so highly correlated if kids can't read by 3rd grade, they get left behind, and they're more likely to end up in negative situations, and maybe in the criminal justice system or in poverty. And so literacy, as much as I just love thinking about little kids reading, I think about it in such a much broader perspective, and the fact that we have this incredible program and that we're having it rolled out into all of our K2 classrooms with people like Abby and Sarah leading the charge, I think is just really worthy of us taking time to acknowledge. And so I thank you for being here, and I'm very heartened and encouraged by the results of this program.
Thank you. I often say that, yes, there's great value in the program, UFly. It's been just a huge move for us, and also recognize that it takes a human to implement that, and that's our classroom teachers. So really proud of how they've committed to this work and the impact that we're seeing. And of course, that momentum just creates more momentum.
Gail?
Well, first of all, I echo Board Member Duffy's sentiments and want to say what a fabulous report this is, and the numbers don't lie as far as the effectiveness of it. So I'll ask the million-dollar question: why can't we roll this out sooner? Full implementation.
Great question. And I think there's real value in making sure that we can support the professional learning that must come alongside of this. And to do that with 300 teachers versus 100 at a time is more easier to approach. And I think the other thing that we see is when we have it with our kindergartners and then they move it into 1st grade, we build that systemic approach to the learning.
I appreciate that you collected the data before you just jumped, right into it. So what we, thought may or may not happen, we really made sure that before we made the investment of the teacher time. So, yeah, thank you.
Does it go beyond 2nd grade? Is there?
It's established for K2 because it's foundational literacy skills, which are part of our South Dakota state standards at K1-2. What it could be utilized in 3-5 is more of an intervention approach. So if we still have kiddos who are have some gaps or some missed learning opportunities, then we could use it 3rd, 4th, 5th to do some intervening. But right now, our focus is K-2.
Yeah, have you taken, like staff surveys? Have you done a full, I know there was a couple of quotes there, but what's your methodology
Yeah,
in getting
yeah.
staff feedback?
What we, last year with our kindergarten team, which was our full, first blush for the district, we just had a survey that went out to all of our teachers that just said, help us understand kind of where were the successes, where were the challenges, and then we pulled some of those quotes from there. But overall, just a really strong sentiment of how valuable it was, to the point that our first grade teachers were just knocking at the door, help us get trained. And so we did the training right as soon as we were out this spring for the majority of our first grade teachers so that they were ready to go this fall.
So I have a question.
Okay.
When we say that we're reading at or above grade level, so if you put that on a scale, let's just say a grading scale, so at grade level, 100%? I mean,
Well, we have 81% as of last spring with our kindergartners. Yeah,
Yeah.
81% of
no, I
them
was
at
just
or above.
talking about, would you consider someone at grade level proficient at 100%?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. We
Because
can-
sometimes I think people are confused because they'll say, well, your test scores are bad because not all kids are at grade level. But if you walk into a classroom, people are at different levels. Okay, they can all read.
Right. What I would say is that of those 80% of those students, that we would say if we were to hand them one of our decodable passages, they would be able to read it with fluency, with comprehension, with fairly easy or ease in reading that for the decoding portion of it. They might come to some words that they would stumble over and maybe have to do some sounding and rereading, but overall, yes, they would be able to pick up a grade level piece of text and read it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we confuse people when we don't explain that. All these kids can read at a certain level, some better than others, but it's not any different going into any classroom.
Some just easier than others.
But I appreciate it. I think it's wonderful. For me, when I got on the board, that was my big deal. We needed to improve our reading scores. I'm so excited about this. My wife is a former reading teacher, so like, calm down, man. Take it. But she said it's good stuff, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Gail?
I have one more comment/question. Every elementary school I went into last year where I got to watch you fly in action, I asked the teacher and or the principal, okay, who's going to be the one to find the program that's similar to this in results for math? And so my question to you is there a program out there that's similar to math?
We'll be on the lookout. We're just starting that math study, and so we will work with our elementary teachers and see what we can come up with.
And we are working on something on that, so yes. We've tried several different reading programs in the past. Some have been very expensive. And we need to find what works, and sometimes the simplest solution is making sure that we train our teachers and empower them, and this program has done an incredible job of doing that. I will tell you another piece, and I know she hit on that, Ms. McDaniel did, but our instructional coaches that have gone in to do the professional development with our teachers has been critical in this. And so the cost of it is not very significant when you look in the dollars and cents of purchasing a program. The cost is truly in people and helping them to be able to learn it and feel comfortable of going to them and being able to reach out and have them come into their classroom and assist and help. And so part of the rollout of that is, why didn't it start broader, faster? Well, we needed to make sure that it worked before we begin to go into that. And now, as it has shown results, people are buying into it, and that's part of the process too, that they buy into it, and the instructional coaches are there to help them. So we've been very pleased with it. The work that has gone in, you can obviously see the passion for reading that Ms. McDaniel has, and working with the instructional coaches to make that a reality. So we're excited about that. We'll see what impact it has on our kids moving forward, but the results early on here are very strong.
Anybody else? All right, all in favor of approving or acknowledging the UFly Reading Pilot Report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is carries. Thank you.
The second report we have here of the superintendent's reports is our initial enrollment report. And we go through the initial enrollment as we look at the start of the school year. It's not our final count that we use for funding purposes, but it is to look at what is our count early on in the year here as things start to balance out. And Mr. Morrison will bring that report to you.
Good evening, School Board. Doug Morrison, Director of Data Services. As Dr. Nold said, the purpose of tonight's report is to give the 25-26 initial enrollment FTE numbers based on the active enrollments at the end of the 4th day of school. And so this is kind of traditionally the snapshot we give the school board. So we'll just kind of go in and go through some highlights that you'll see in the board report. Initial fall enrollment for the district is 24,290 FTE, which is 86 less than the initial count at the same time last year. The count is based on active enrollments at the end of the 4th business day. And if we look at some grade level results, we'll see that the kindergarten enrollment of 1,731 is 46 less than the prior school year. At the same point, on the plus side, junior kindergarten is up to 79, which is 38 more than last year. So credit to Dr. Zeke for revitalizing that program and bringing some good numbers on that front. Grades 1 through 5 enrollment down 140 kids, and that's really a symptom of the lower incoming kindergarten class and the outgoing 5th grade class, and we'll kind of get that in when we get to some of the detail. Middle school enrollment up 83 students, high school enrollment down 67 students. Open enrollment maintaining steady at 1,067, pretty flat, up 2 students. So people still find our district attractive to open enroll into. And then structurally, Marcel Lebeau, as you're aware, opened with a preliminary enrollment of about 284 students, and the offset to those mainly came out of Hawthorne, Renberg, and Hayward as we redid those boundaries. And then another structural change, as you're well, the elementary immersion school was closed, and those students are being served at other schools. So the overall, again, we kind of talked about this and went through that. Good news on the junior kindergarten front, K through 5 down. I would also call your attention to pre-K is down at the 4th business day, but this is something that really fluctuates for a couple weeks here, as they weren't even starting school at that point, so that will bounce around a little bit. So in the coming slides, we'll dive into each one of these in a little more depth. What can you expect from what we say is historically is on day 4, we still have a lot of things in flux, right? And so we know that on day 4, when I did this report, I still had 177 students that hadn't been to school yet. And they had missed 4 consecutive days. We as a district have to keep those students enrolled until they're out for 15 days, and then we can start to drop those students. But what's happening from the first day of school till the final enrollment numbers is we have students moving to the district. We have students that have moved maybe over the summer, and we're just now getting enrollment records from other schools, and so there's a lot of churn in there. We kind of know by day 4 the students that have showed up for the most part. So most of the pressure is on a downward side. And so what this chart basically is saying is that the actual fall enrollment will be slightly less than the preliminary enrollment if we follow traditional patterns here. So you can see last year between the preliminary and the final, we were down 146 students, and that kind of plays out pretty consistently the last 4 or 5 years. And so when I looked at the numbers this morning, we were down 50, but I still had 70 students that hadn't been to school yet after 10 days. So we'll still, still have some pressure to go in the downward. Looking at the each level, this is kind of just looking at the current year versus prior year cohort, and I'll kind of show you how the cohorts follow in a subsequent slide. But this is just kind of, you can see that in the current year kindergarten class, 1,731 kids. That's 46 less. And then you can also see that as I'm replacing that, I have a higher cohort that's moving on to middle school. And so another way of saying that, as we see those kindergarten classes less, we will see continued pressure on our overall enrollment. That will eventually work its way through every grade level in the district. Middle school, we don't, we just haven't, those students haven't gone into middle school yet, so we don't quite see the downturn there. And high school at this point really seeing normal type activity. So I would say one thing about the kindergarten class, when we looked at, if you looked at the, say 2010 through 2020 as an example, our kindergarten classes incoming were around the 2,000 mark. And so you can see that was fueling a lot of growth in the district. And now when you drop into the 1800s, that is a lot of pressure on our enrollment. So just to keep that in mind. Probably an easier way to look at enrollment is looking at when we're just looking at cohorts. Okay, so here would be a traditional, what we might call a cohort survival rate, attrition rate, however you want to term it, but you can see the prior year final numbers, and then you can see how many went into the next grade or survived in the next grade. And I think you would see it's pretty predictable when you look at it this way. What's happening in high school is that we have, especially at the 11th, 12th grade, we have early graduates, so they drop out. That's a good thing, but for enrollment, they're leaving our district. And then that's where we also see students that have discontinued their education. So if you have a cohort of 2,000 kids and you knock out of the park and you have a 90% graduation rate, that's still almost 200 kids that are discontinuing their education. And it usually happens all through high school, but more predominantly at the 11th and 12th grades. And so that's why you see those numbers increase as those students are moving on. Otherwise, I would say things become pretty predictable as we're looking to predict enrollment, except for that incoming kindergarten class. And that's the hardest one to predict. I know Todd looks at births in Minnehaha, Lincoln County, but anymore with the spread in the town, we just don't know where those kiddos will end up. We also know that we're landlocked, and so we know we have some growth area in the Northwest, but you'll see in subsequent slides, see some of our core schools starting to, enrollment starting to lessen. Just looking at it by school, we kind of try to put it roughly in sort of the areas that they're in. So looking at the west side, you can see Hayward down slightly. Again, that's driven by those students that were redistricted into Marcelo Lebeau. You see Marcelo Lebeau out there at their 284 initial count, which again is pretty much Hawthorne, Hayward, Renberg, the kids that are in that HAC, and it's also a RISE site, so we attract students that are in that population as well. And then you see Renberg, kids that were redistricted out of Renberg into Marcelo Lebeau. So that's kind of what's happening on the west side. If you look on the central side, the big change there is Hawthorne. They're 90 students less than the prior year. And I know that specifically 78 students that were in Hawthorne last year are now at Marcelo Lebeau. So that accounts for most of it. But then other than that, Laura B. Anderson had a extra section of kindergarten. So that school grew a little bit last year, but you can see the other schools continued pressure on those FTEs in the core of the city. East side, pretty stable. All, overall within 2 FTEs of where it was last year, so more stability on that side of town. And then you can see the specialty schools that will tend to bounce around a little bit as we enroll students in some of those specialty schools throughout the year. You do see elementary immersion. They had a preliminary enrollment of 92 last year. They're no longer here. When I talked to Sarah, I think we have about 28 students, comparing apples to apples, that are now being served in other schools. So that population of students is just down across the district. Then moving on to middle school, you know, I would say just normal cohort changes. George McGovern up a little bit. As we know, that's still a growth area, so just normal growing out in that area. See some enrollment growth there. At high school level, you can see all of our schools, with the exception of Lincoln, within that 1,800 population, which was where we wanted it. Jefferson saw a little decline, Roosevelt a little increase. When I looked at there, I didn't see anything specific there, just kind of normal patterns of enrollment. And then looking at open enrollment, on the next slide, you can see, again, pretty consistent where we have been. We get most of our open enrollment in from Brandon, Harrisburg, Tri-Valley, and West Central. And then looking at where they go, you can see Ben Rifle gets a lot of Brandon students from that side of town. Jefferson is getting students from Tri-Valley, West Central, and so, you know, we just have a natural inflow of students from that side of town. Lincoln, of course, has the Spanish immersion and some of those programs that end up at Lincoln. Sonia Sotomayor with its program, and then Washington has about 68 open enrollments, and about 46 of those come from the Brandon School District. So nothing really, not much change here from an open enrollment perspective. So next steps, what will happen is we'll continue to monitor this, and the final enrollment date with the state is as of September 26th. And so that's the cutoff. We will be reconciling with them to make sure we can sign off on that. That will happen on October 31st in its finality. That will drive our funding. But then I'll bring back here on October 27th with the final enrollment board report. And like I said, I think if you would probably expect it to be down just a little bit from last year's final enrollment based on what we're seeing here, primarily driven by that incoming kindergarten class. Everything else I think has been pretty predictable at this point. So with that, I will ask for acknowledge the fall 25 initial enrollment report, and I'll stand by for any questions.
Okay, let's first get a motion to acknowledge the initial enrollment report, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any questions, discussion? Gail?
Mr. Morrison, just to clarify, when you're looking at your junior and senior numbers and the numbers of students that we lose either to graduation or you say they dropped out or moved out or whatever, that cohort number does not include the kids that are taking longer than 4 years to complete their high school, right? Like they're a completer, but they might graduate in 4.5 years or 5 years. Is
Yeah,
that
that's
correct?
down in that sort of that other number. There's like other, I have 200 and, like 200-ish that kids are just, they're trying to still graduate, right? That's, there's always those. And we still, like you said, we have an on-time graduation rate, but we hope to recover some of those. And maybe they take an extra year or 2 years. And so you might see our graduation rate, at on time at 89%, and maybe our completion rate is 91% or higher, right? So we're trying to recover some of those kids that are still trying to pursue graduation. They might have had a life circumstance or something like that, or just need more time to get through through their courses. And so we never give up on anybody. That's always been our mantra. So,
Thank you.
Go ahead, Dawn Marie.
If my memory serves me correctly, last year there was quite a few headlines after your first report saying Sioux Falls School District enrollment down, and after when you came back, Todd gave us a little insight to those birth rates and looking at how there wasn't many babies born, and that's why we had a lower kindergarten class starting. So Todd, could you maybe like refresh some of our friends' memory on that and give a little context from last year? I think that was you that gave that extra birth rate context. Please.
Well, I got good news. I heard on the news this morning that Avera had a record month birth in June. So, yeah, we look at to predict kindergarten 6 years out is the way we do it. We look at the birth rate. Yeah, the birth rate has been declining. So we are not. Yeah, it's been declining probably since what Doug said, like last 7 or 8 years. I mean, 6 years prior to the last 7 or 8 years. So we're still getting a decent share of the kids. It's just, yeah, there was a little bump one year. It was, I think, 2021. Maybe figure out why that was. But those kids won't, the way we count them, they won't show up till the fall of 27. So, but other than that, there's been a decline over the last 10 years or so.
Thank you. Yes. Also, not to lead anybody to confusion, our district takes a open rolling enrollment, and that our cutoff is simply for the state for budgetary reasons.
Correct. Yep,
Excellent.
for funding purposes. They measure everybody across the state at the same time, and that's how they allocate their funding. They're also making sure that there's not overlapping enrollment. So a student we have here isn't enrolled in another district, and that's part of the whole reconciliation process that we go through with them. And they're also looking at kids that haven't shown up yet. So they don't want us to take credit for a kiddo that's never showed up that we still have an enrollment. So it's a pretty rigorous reconcilement process that we go with the state. So I think at the end of the day, our fall enrollment is pretty accurate of where we're actually at. But like you said, all year long, we're taking kids in, kids leave. It's just constant enrollment management.
Part 2 of that question, Dr. Z, we are still taking, for the benefit of any of those listening and still want to enroll their child for junior kindergarten or pre-kindergarten, we have that ability, correct?
That is correct.
And who should they contact?
You can go to the Sioux Falls School District website or just call the school. And that could be at JFK, at Robert Frost, at Hayward, or Cleveland Elementaries.
Excellent. Your signs have been great too. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? All right. All in favor of acknowledging the initial enrollment report, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, it passes. Thank you.
The third and final report that we have this evening is the wrap up to the FY25 budget year, or that calendar year, and Mr. Beek will give that report to us.
Thank you. Yeah. So we started this budget process almost 2 years ago, and in 2023 when we set the guidelines. And here is probably the final report we're going to get on this budget today. So it's been a long process. So we're going to talk about kind of 5 different areas. We're going to look at the revenues. We're going to look at the expenditures. We're going to look at the net or revenues over expenditures. Then we're going to look at the fund balances, and then we're going to look at statistics we get from the state on average teacher salary and teacher compensation. So we'll start first with the revenues. The general fund, we came in at about 98.7% of revenues there. The shortfall was just didn't do an internal transfer we didn't think we needed to do. That was budgeted. Capital outlay, we came in a little long at about, which is you want to be long generally at 1.6% over. That's just some other funds outside the tax, outside the property taxes, interest and things like that. SPED, we originally had budgeted $1 million of IDEA carryover money. That because the budget came in pretty well, we did not. We didn't take that $1 million of carryover. So we still have the funds roll forward. So we still have funds for next year, but we just didn't utilize that. Otherwise, we were almost right on the money with SPED. And bond redemption was just off by $13,000. That one is you just make a request. We just levy a dollar amount, and we typically get that, except for some people, don't pay their taxes on time, and it's not made up by the late taxes from the year before. So that's off by $13,000. So overall, the total tax-supported fund revenues came in at a 99% of budget. On the expenditure side, we did really well. General fund, we spent 96% of what was budgeted. Four of the biggest items there are the operational services budget. If you think back to last winter, we had a very mild winter. And the total, it isn't all part of winter, but the total part of the OS budget, it was $2.1 million that came into the good there. And a lot of that was driven by the mild weather. On the curriculum side, we had a pretty small curriculum implementation. We spend $4 million a year, roughly, on that, or we budget $4 million a year on that every year. And in some years it costs more than that. We had one that was near $8 million, but some years it's very low. So if we don't spend all that $4 million, we put it in a reserve so we can have it for the $7 or $8 million a year. So they were $1.6 million under budget, but most of that will just go into the curriculum reserve for a year when it's a higher need. Salaries, we always have a delta. This year was a little higher than we thought, about $3 million. Some of that was positions that weren't filled or churn, somebody leaves and then you have an empty time on some of those hourly positions, the classified positions. Some of it was teacher positions that were filled with long-term subs, and some of it is teacher positions that have been converted into maybe a behavior specialist or a behavior facilitator instead if they couldn't fill the position. And then finally, benefits. The benefits are kind of dictated on what our population is and what they sign up for. And we look at what percent of the salaries goes into benefits in the year prior to we do the budget. So it's a 2-year lag. And we were up to 35%, so that's what we budgeted, but we came in at 34. So for next year, we've got 34 loaded in there. Well, when you're talking about salary expenses of, not including the federal money, but salary expenses of $137 million when you come in 1% under, that's a pretty good chunk of money. So we're about $2.3 million to the good on benefits as well. So that's kind of where we saved money and came in. We always do like to come in low. This was just lower than typical. Capital outlay, we came in, again, under, and most of that has to do with not making that transfer into the general fund. It's just moving money from one fund to the other, and we didn't do that. Special ed, we came in at 98%, and because of that, we didn't do that transfer from IDEA. Same issue there, salaries, and well, not the heat and the lights and the plowing, but salaries and the benefits would have affected them as well. Bond redemption, pretty much we know what we're going to pay, so we're almost right on there. So total expenditures, the variance there was we came in at 96.1% of expenditures. You always want to be over on the revenues and under on the expenditures, but this is a little more generous than we usually have it. Finally, looking at the net or the revenue over expense on these, we budgeted $7 million into the fund balance, but because we came in so well on the expenditures, we only were just short of $1 million of spending into the fund balance. So the variance was about 2.7% of the actual expenditures that we incurred. Capital outlay, we we're positive $4.2 million, and that's that. Most of that is that we were budgeting into the fund balance, but we only, at $6 million, we spent $2 million. That's a positive variance of 4.2, and most of that is that transfer we didn't make. Most of that was almost all of that, actually. SPED, we had budgeted $584,000 into the fund balance. We only came in spending $279,000 there. So we did $305,000 to the good. And bond redemption, we ended up we spent $10,000 more, $356 than we thought we would as far as the net for that. So that was the one that was a little off. Overall, we were at 3.1% on the total variance to the good for the district. So I talked a little bit about the fund balances in the general fund. So we obligate some money for things like the curriculum study and whatnot, and what's left is the unobligated fund balance. We had projected we'd be at 10.1% in the general fund. This year, we ended up at 11.8. So that everything I just told you is why, and that includes money that 11.8% does not include the money like we set aside for the upcoming curriculum implementation in a future year. On the capital outlay fund, we ended up at 18.9 million, almost 19. Our 5-year capital outlay plan fund balance had us at 18 million at the end of the fiscal year we're in right now. So we're a little bit ahead of that pace. So that gives us some money to utilize for some projects that, a project list that Jeff is working on and has been growing in the last couple of years. So that's good. SPED, we're at 15.6%. The state allows us to be at 25. If you're over 25, you lose dollar for dollar. State aid, anything over that. So we're at a comfortable fund balance there. And bond redemption, it looks like a big number. It's 6.5 million, 53%. But we had a $10 million bond expenditure that was due in August. So that's already been spent and more. So that we have to kind of time that based on when those bond debt service payments hit. And then this is something we've looked at ever since they had the accountability rules, and it went back prior to the accountability rules got more serious than a year ago. But this is something we've looked at for a while now. Our average teacher compensation grew 4.1%. Our teacher salaries grew 4.1. Our average total compensation grew 4. Now I showed you earlier how we had budgeted 35%, we came in at 34. That's kind of the reflection on that. They just weren't taking as many benefit. Teachers and the rest of the staff weren't taking the same number of benefits they did the year before. So that lagged a little bit. The target teacher salary, which is still in state aid, grew 4%. So both of ours either matched or beat that. They went up from 59,659 to 62,045. We are at 62,683, so we're about 1% above that target teacher salary. The target teacher compensation, which includes the benefits and the salary, grew to 80,038. We are 5.4% of that, above that. Our benefit package tends to be more rich than our neighbors and the district and all districts in the state, we're one of the top ones there. And then there's a law that was passed a year ago that says our average teacher compensation has to grow at the rate of that state aid grew. And if it doesn't, if you don't come within 97% of that number, you're going to get penalized in state aid. So our target last year, and they just look at compensation, not salaries. Our target was 84,365. It's a rounding error. We hit that at 4%, but we were actually short by 0.015%. we were short just a few $1,000s. Actually, when we sent in originally was right, and they found a couple of FTE issues and benefits, and they adjusted it, and we came out. So we're 85 1,000ths low as a percent, basically right on. That number would have to be over worse than a -3% for there to be a penalty. So basically we're right on that. And you don't want to fall behind because it'll be tougher to catch up, but we're kind of right on the money on that. So those two items are new there, and yeah, we're definitely within 3%. So that's it. The recommendation is to acknowledge the report on the district's FY 25 budget wrap-up.
Can I get a motion to acknowledge the report on the district's 25 budget wrap-up?
So moved.
Discussion, questions?
I guess based on how this year went, like what should we be thinking about for our upcoming? Just like a little preface to it.
What should we be thinking about for next year?
Yes.
Well, Dr. Nold hinted at it earlier in the good news report that we will be meeting with teachers and other staff ahead of time to kind of get priorities and what are the highest priorities to them, so we can develop budget guidelines that tend toward meeting those priorities. We still are looking at some reductions as we're trying to phase out of having that COVID money that we had for several years. So we're still going to be, we're in better shape than we thought we'd be, but we're still kind of looking for reductions that can be made. And we're always trying to find efficiencies anyway. But we'll get as soon as we get all salaries are the biggest part of our general fund budget. Salaries and benefits, it's about 85% of it total. As soon as we get all our new staff and everything loaded into the system, we'll take a look at what that's going to look like next year, and then we'll have a better idea of how much we really think we need to cut going forward for the next 4 or 5 years, finding efficiencies. And so I think it's good news, but we're still looking for efficiencies as always.
Todd, do you still meet with your Financial Action Network Committee?
Well, the last time we met was in 2019. We were going to meet this year, but late last year, but we found out we were going to get a new superintendent, so we decided to hold off on that, and we'll probably set that up into the near future for another follow-up with them.
Good, that would be great. And something else that I just observed, and I think it's worth drawing this out, is that given our revenues went down, our teacher salary still went up. And I think that's a strong indication of the district's support of teacher salary and benefits. So when we look to next year, it seems to me that would be something we would continue to prioritize.
Yep, couldn't agree more.
Okay, any other? All right, all in favor of approving the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the acknowledgement of the budget wrap-up has been approved. Well, there we are. That's another meeting. We are moving to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.